Hey, how are you guys? It is week 7 and we're looking at chapter 5. So this is our chapter 5 overview. Now we move into listening and why it's so important, listening to the customer. This is the number one topic. I've probably talked to you about this before. Within that whole realm of communication that I worked with companies on as a corporate trainer, is communication is so bad, and why do people make so many mistakes? And it often just boils down to poor listening. We're not born knowing how to do this, right? So it talks about it here. Why is listening so important? You guys can read that, and I think we know why. But on 169, they give us some more concrete ways to look at this. So according to our father of listening, Dr. Ralph Nichols, he had developed the idea that white-collar workers in the United States typically has only about a 25% efficiency rate when listening. This still holds pretty true today anyway. So when you look at that little table on page 169, so they give us the opportunities, the action taken, and the impact. So if you had 100 customers a day that each, spent $10, right? If only 25 of the orders were filled successfully, you lost 750 potential dollars that day, or $270,750 for the whole year, right? Because you're only efficient to 25% of the time. If you had 1,000 customers that went to the store in one day, only 250 of them were serviced properly. That means that 750 left dissatisfied. And then the last part is, or the last example is, 1 million members were eligible for membership renewal in an association. So if 25% or 250,000 of them returned the applications after receiving their reminder call, 750,000 didn't. Ooh, there's lots of money involved. The bottom line is listening well earns you better money. So what is listening? You guys can read that, the whole physical process of it, how hearing and receiving the messages. Now remember, we're born knowing how to hear. We are not born knowing how to listen, right? Listening is actually going through this process, right? So, we get the message comes in, we hear the message, but then you have to attend to it, which they mention here. Then you have to, comprehend or assign it some sort of meaning you have to decode it somehow, right? Think of that diagram earlier in one of the earlier chapters, right? And then once you decode the message, you have to respond in some way. And then it needs to be the appropriate way. So there's a lot going on when it comes to actually listening well. When you look on page 172, I have in my notes here in the book that this should be laminated. Figure 5.3 should be laminated. Should be on your badge that you wear around your neck, right? In analyzing your customer's message, ask yourself the following questions. Am I practicing active listening skills? What message is the customer trying to get across? If you could ask yourself these over and over and over, pretty soon it becomes second nature. And those of us that consider ourselves professional customer service people, we do this. We do this all the time. You just you do it so much that you just pretty much do it second nature, right? But until you get to that point, that's why I say it should be laminated on the back of your badge. You can flip it up and say, okay, was I thinking about that? Right? Now, what I want you to do is on page 172, I want you to stop the video and fill out that little self-assessment figure 5.4 on the bottom of page 172. So I'm going to play the music from, what is it? Do 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 do. I think that's Jeopardy, right? So pause the video. Okay, I'm going to assume we're paused, right? And come back and look at your score. So when you get your score, I scored 44. I've been doing this a long time, right? But that's all fine and dandy. But now what I really would like for you to do, and I've done this before myself, now have somebody else fill it out about you to see if they think you're as fancy and as good as you are. So maybe I wouldn't earn 44 points if somebody else were filling it out for me. I'm not going to let my husband fill it out. So then you have something to compare it to. Gap analysis, right? You keep hearing me say that, right? So this is where you are. This is where you should be. And how wide is the gap? How much work do I need to do to get to be 100%, right? Characteristics of a good listener. You can go through this list of things here, but what I really think is, and it starts with empathy and being understanding and being patient. A lot of these things we've already talked about. But look on the bottom of page 173, that figure 5.5. What I want you to remember is, so you look at that list on the left-hand side, it says effective listeners, right? Focused, right? They're responsive, they're alert, they're understanding. Then you look at the ineffectual listeners. They're inattentive. They're uncaring. They're distracted. They're not concerned. One thing I need for you to really remember is that all of these things on the good side starts to break down the more pressure you have on you or the busier you become. So it's not necessarily because you're a poor customer service representative, but maybe, 3 people did call in sick that day and you're the only one on the floor, right? Or whatever it is, or answering the phones or whatever the job is. All of a sudden these things can start to break down where you're normally very organized. Maybe all of a sudden you're very disorganized. So there can be a lot of external factors that are causing these breakdowns, right? And that's where look at that, leads us right into page 175, causes of listening breakdowns. And they have them broken down into, I think, like 4 different categories. So the first, they're talking about personal obstacles. First and foremost are our biases. Now, there isn't a person that's watching this video or me that does not have a bias. That does not make us bad people at all. It just means we're human beings, right? And wherever you grow up or however you're raised, you learn these biases from the community that you live in, the culture you are raised from, and your parents and all that good stuff. And that's where it leads to, then we learn what stereotypes are, and then it can escalate into discrimination, that sort of thing. But at the base level, it's just a bias because I'll give you, for example, what do you think of when I say redheads, especially a redheaded woman? Now, different generations might answer this differently, because my older students might say, well, they're kind of hot-headed, They have to be Irish, right? My younger ones, I see purple hair, blue hair, yellow hair. Well, actually, some older folks too might have some pretty wild-looking hair. They have a totally different meaning for you, right? But I'll give you another example. When I say lawyers? What comes to mind when I say, well, I'm a lawyer? Now, some people might think, wow, you must be pretty smart. But a lot of people, the first words out of their mouth are, they're crooks. They're all crooks, right? So biases cloud our judgment. So we have to try to, seek meaning and put those biases behind us. Psychological distractors. This is your mood. Like, what mood are you in? Are you angry? Are you upset? Did you just have an argument with someone? This does affect the way that we approach other people. You have to be really good at it to be able to just like go into a Zen moment, take a deep breath and say, okay, now I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be on and I'm going to be good. I'm going to answer this phone and I'm not going to be crabby. I'm not going to be short with people. And then it leads us into the physical condition. No matter how tired I am, because I just had a baby and the baby's kind of crying, need to be fed all the time, and I haven't slept in, 9 weeks, right? Somehow you have to figure out a way to get through these things, because it is reflected in how you serve other people. How about your circadian rhythm? If you aren't familiar with that term, it's basically, are you a morning person or are you a night owl? That's what they're talking about, because we do have, our bodies have natural rhythms, and some people just aren't the same. I'm up at 4 a.m. and I've got like more work done by 8 a.m. than some people get done in a whole day, right? But then I have a friend, she's totally opposite from the norm, right? She comes alive like at 3 in the afternoon when I'm ready to tip over, right? By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm looking for supper because I'm starving, right? Even though I eat on and off all day. But I'm starting to wind down. That is why I do not grade your papers late in the day or late in the week. I am at your papers when it's grading time. Monday is my grading day, and then Tuesday is my backup grading day. And 5:30 in the morning on Monday, I'm generally at this desk grading papers. Yeah. And then by Tuesday, I do take the luxury of a studio class, so I may not get to my desk till between 7 and 8. But I know I'm a morning person. My brain is sharp. I'm not tired. I don't want to be overly hard on you just because I'm going against my circadian rhythms. Keep that in mind when you're looking for shifts at work. I had a friend. She's a night owl. She loved third shift, where everybody else is like, oh, it's dreadful. Preoccupations. This comes on page 178. This can come from a lot of different places. Relationship issues, financial issues. You're preoccupied for whatever reason. That's why companies have EAP programs. Hearing loss. Oh my gosh. I was after my husband for years because he's a gearhead. And for many years, his first profession was a professional mechanic. Always had his head in some motor, and no one wore earplugs back in those days. So he hasn't been able to hear anything forever, right? But he didn't believe me, right? Well, until, he has a CDL, because then he transitioned into another career in his life, and he drove over the road for 12 years. Well, not too many years ago here now, he flunked his CDL test, which was mortifying for him. They said, he said, how could I flunk my test? They said, you flunked the hearing test. It had to be the federal government running the CDL program, not his wife of 37 years. That he finally believed and went and got hearing aids. Now he hears everything. Damn it. Listening skill level. This is a second factor. Like I said, they kind of have these grouped up. Personal factor, listening skill level is a second factor. Part of this is that it's a learned behavior. So skill level, it really is a skill level. This is a learned behavior. I in no way, shape, or form as a good listener as I was 25 years ago or 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Oh my gosh, right? So figure 5.6 on the top of 179. This can help be like an indicator that maybe you're not listening, okay? So customers specifically asked to speak to or be served by someone else. Now, you may think it's for all kinds of other reasons. The core of it is probably maybe you weren't listening. So your behavior reflected it, even though they may not even be able to put their finger on it and say, well, specifically, they're not good listeners. They're not going to say that. You find yourself missing key details of conversations. You regularly have to ask people to repeat information. You end phone calls or personal encounters not knowing for sure what the action was that was required of you. You better have, these are weekly agendas, right, that we use in our class for a reason. When you go to a business meeting, there better be an agenda. I never go to a business meeting without a legal pad, right? Because I can't tell you, and these are professionals too, right, that don't have an agenda. Or they hand you the agenda when you walk in the door. You should be getting your agenda when the meeting is made. Right? But that often doesn't happen. So what I do is I take notes all across that agenda. This is a checklist. Use your agendas like a checklist in your business meetings as well. Oh, did I stop recording?